Alright, welcome back. Jessica suddenly started coughing. At first, I thought she was just choking after yelling too loud, but before long I realized how painful it looked. Jessica kept coughing and choking, down on her hands and knees. Jessica, hang in there. There, you'll be okay. Dr. Nanjo. Jessica-san, your inhaler, quickly. No, wait, I have one with me. He's a terrible doctor. Dr. Nanjo pulled a welcome to today's word that I don't know how to pronounce. Bronchodilator. That thing. Inhaler. From his own bag, which was lying on the sofa, and handed it to Jessica. Come to think of it, 6 years ago, didn't Jessica sometimes break into violent coughing fits and have to use that? However, 6 years ago, I never saw Jessica look like she was in this much pain. Too much excitement. I know the feeling. Aniki, was Jessica's asthma always this bad? It's gotten a lot worse these last few years. It's no problem when she's normal, but when an attack comes suddenly, she can't stop coughing anymore. Cough, cough. Ooh, cough, 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 cough. Cough, 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 cough. Milady, your medicine. Here. Cough, cough. Taking the inhaler from Kanon-kun, Jessica used it with a practiced hand. It looked like her throat would still itch for a while, but she had it under control. That's how my throat feels every day. Are you okay, Jessica? You scared me. It's no big deal. It looked like it. Don't worry about it. Beads of sweat covered Jessica's whole body and she couldn't hide her rough breathing, but it looked like her sudden attack had calmed down for now. The disturbance had made the dangerous atmosphere up until now seem slightly unfocused. But that's fine. That kind of battle of mutual suspicion is completely unnecessary. When you think about it, finding alibis for each other and looking for the culprit is probably meaningless. After all, we're just powerless, ordinary people. And when the police come tomorrow, they'll definitely employ cutting-edge techniques and investigate the case thoroughly, solving all of the riddles and arresting the culprit. Ah yes, just like real life. Perhaps Battler-kun is right after all. Just as Natsuhine-san is suspicious, I can't ignore the fact that I'm suspicious too. Arguing about that now will surely be unproductive. Everything will be fine if we just leave it to the police tomorrow. But don't you want to know too, Battler-kun? Who the culprit is? I mean, obviously. Don't you want to let them know the pain you feel from losing someone precious to you as soon as possible? I won't deny that. Even one day would be too long to let the wonderful bastard who's behind this go. What? But that doesn't mean that I want to suspect one of the 18. Even though I said what I said earlier, I don't even want to suspect you, Aunt Eva. To me, you're an awesome aunt who's always fun and playful. That's a polite way of putting it. I don't want to trade insults with an aunt like that. I wouldn't want to do that with anyone here. Right? Everyone? I feel the same way as Battler-kun. It's pointless to trade insults. It's probably just the stress built up from so many people because so many people have been crammed in one place since morning. That is the just most awkward sentence. Probably. It is only natural. It may not be my place to say it, but I think we should all relax as much as possible. Everybody's dead. Just sit back and chill. Okay. Eva, I think we'd better cool our heads too. The receipt's definitely a big clue for figuring out how Father disappeared. We should tell the police about it when they come. That's right. Right. I just felt a little triumphant when I figured out that part with the receipt. Of course, it isn't fair to only suspect Natsuhine-san, right? We're just as suspicious. But still, Battler-kun, at least the part about the receipt is real, okay? Don't forget it. And try thinking deeply about what it means one more time, okay? Dots. More dots. Aunt Eva and Uncle Hideyoshi stood up. It looked like they planned on leaving the parlor. In the end, it's pointless for us to keep playing detectives. After all, the police will reveal everything anyway. Ah yes, like they always do. That's right. Even if we don't play this detective game, the typhoon will pass. And when those lively seagulls return to the harbour, oh, it's the thing, they said the thing, everything will settle itself. That's right. If you think about it, this kind of crime is completely trivial. What? It will definitely be resolved. I wouldn't call half your family being brutally murdered like trivial. Just a thought. Even if we do nothing. They said the thing. When the seagulls cry. Dun dun. Natsuhine-san, I take it you don't want to see my face anymore. No. I feel the same. Oh, well then. How rude. If I remember correctly, yesterday you had some rooms prepared for us in this mansion so that we wouldn't need to go back to the guest house, right? Those should each have a bath and a toilet, as well as a lock and a chain to secure the door. There's even a bed to lie on, and my husband will be able to watch TV without having to fight with Maria-chan over which channel to watch, right? Still packing that gun. Lots of dots. Do whatever you want. But make sure to be cautious. Get out of my face. Thank you, Ne-san. And mind your own business. Rude. I'll be counting on you to keep an eye on everyone, okay? Wait, what? Mind your own business, immediately followed by keep an eye on everyone. Am I the only one who... What? Because the culprit is definitely here. Oh, whatever. And Ne-san, make sure you don't forget to keep an eye on yourself, too. What? You should stop talking. Have you finished taking your parting shots? Get out of my face. Yes, I'm finished. See you, Natsuhine-san. Genji-san, let us know when it's time for dinner. Until then, we'll lock ourselves in with the chain. Yeah, good. Go away. Lots of dots. Oh, and the gun disappeared. Genji, Kanon, escort them to the guest room. We'll be fine. I hate shady Oh! She's not even pretending not to be a rude douchebag anymore. In fact, I'd be more comfortable if nobody leaves this room until we reach ours. Dang. Let's go, George. You tell him. I'll stay here with everybody. George, the culprit is in this room. Do you plan on staying in a place like that? Well, if it gets me away from you, yeah. Leaving this place would be the same as suspecting one of my relatives. I can't believe anyone in our family is capable of something that horrible. George. Darling, you tell him too. George is already an adult man. If his code tells him not to leave this room, then it's up to him. Let him do what he wants. Father. Aunt Eva and Uncle Hideyoshi left. The only voice that called after them was the sound of the rain. The rain doesn't have a voice. The parlour was being buried beneath the savage atmosphere. That's an interesting choice of words. When I looked at the clock, I was surprised to find that it was already evening. Had we really spent that much time worrying about needless things, talking with each other, fighting with each other? Feeling bored, I started scratching at my head. When... Hey, Maria and I made eye contact. What's up, Maria? I was a little surprised since I thought she was completely immersed in the TV. Just pop over there, would ya? I believe it now. Ooh. The letter. Excuse me. The murders. Everything. It was all Beatrice. Yes, our dark lord and savior Beatrice, do you have a moment to speak of her? In fact, I almost feel like begging her to come out and take credit for it all. I want it to be the work of a 19th person. Otherwise, the 18 of us will have to keep on suspecting each other. I think believing in a 19th person is better than that. I've been wondering this the whole time, but why is the cross on his suit upside down? It bothers me. Lots of dots. Bringing grandfather outside without opening the doors or windows must be a piece of cake for Beatrice, right? Maria, after taking a single short breath, hung her head and then raised her face again. Is it the other Maria? Yeah, she's back. That's right. Locking a door is useless against a witch. Beatrice is familiar with all 72 demons. What? There are 72 demons? Oh, okay, we're getting into some deep stuff here. The 33rd ranked gap, gives the power to instantly instantly carry the desired person to any location. That sounds cool. To her, taking a person out of any closed room isn't hard at all. You see? Nice. Witches sure are incredible. Tell her, if she feels like committing another crime, to do it in a way that no humans could. And make me believe that a 19th person, no, a witch, exists. Somehow I don't think Beatrice gives a shit. Just a thought. Okay. If I meet her, I'll tell her. There's the faces, both their faces are just creepy as hell right there. Crap. Nothing's made sense to me for a while now. Just when I want to believe in a 19th person, I deny it. And just when I want to believe that there are only 18 people, I deny that too. Even though I want there to be more than just the 18 people here, I can't accept the existence of that 19th person. Oh, look, in short, even though there are more than 18 people, there are less than 19 people. That doesn't make sense, Batlakun. The number of people in this mansion is 19 less than X less than 18. What? Okay, whatever. So the number of people can't be represented by an integer. It's been a long time since I heard that term. However, it's impossible for there to be anything after the decimal point. You shouldn't be able to show the number of people with anything but an integer. I mean, if you chop off a limb or something, you've got a part of a person. And yet, 19x18. How do you explain the fraction less than 1? Da-da. It's no wonder. That 19th person was something that couldn't be seen. That's why, since you can only write the number of people as an integer, you couldn't see that person. Da-da. That witch cannot be seen. Yes, we've said that, because Beatrice has no body. Therefore, she is invisible. Is there a 19th person or not? Does the witch exist or not? 19x18. The witch exists somewhere in that X. Da-da. Oh. What's the time? Da-da-da-dun. 7 p.m. The uncomfortable atmosphere continued even after those two left. It was thick with the idea that simply thinking about the culprit's identity would be the same as deciding whom to suspect. It had begun to feel like discussion of the case was itself taboo. So no one mentioned the case, at least out loud. However, those thoughts were what filled our minds. All that we couldn't say aloud made our heads feel like they were going to explode. So, at least on the outside, the parlour had once again regained its calm mood. Everything was left unsettled. It feels like the rain's gotten a little lighter. Ooh? Still pouring down. Ooh. Even if it did stop, there's no boat on this island. But it'd be nice if the boat came quickly tomorrow. I've had enough of this Western mansion vacation. Ehehe. Mum, when will the boat come tomorrow? Normally the boat to take them back would arrive at 3 today. They probably sent us a phone call to say they would come after the typhoon passed, but unfortunately the phones aren't working. Of course they're not. But they aren't children over there. They were told to both drop off and collect our guests. So they will most likely arrive first thing tomorrow morning. Probably about 9, I believe. It was completely black outside. When I looked at the clock, I realized that it was just past 7. I was starting to get hungry. In the kitchen, Kumasawa was cooking enthusiastically. She had laid out a variety of dishes and, while they didn't match the level of Goda's artful cooking, they were still quite gorgeous. It was an act of kindness from Kumasawa, who was trying to enliven everyone's low spirits with some food. Kumasawa wasn't nearly as talented as a professional cook like Goda, but she was far from unskilled. She's also incredibly less douchebaggy than Goda, so, she's got that going for her. On the contrary, Since she had been brought up in a fishing village, the simple food she created was sometimes highly praised. Kanon arranged the food Kumasawa had finished creating on plates under her direction. Kanon also helped in the kitchen sometimes, but since he was rarely placed in that role, he was slightly awkward, even though he tried his best. Aww. Self-conscious about the fact that he couldn't cleverly arrange the food, Kanon's expression darkened slightly. But Kumasawa smiled, as though everything was fine. It's only food. Ho ho ho, it's arranged beautifully. Kanon-kun, aren't you skilled? If it had been Shannon-ne-san, it would look even more beautiful. Yeah, well, she's dead. Kanon stopped arranging the food for a bit and hung his head. Shannon was the one who always assisted Kumasawa in her cooking. Tonight, Kanon was doing it instead. Yes, we know. And as he remembered Shannon's face and her brutal end, he grimaced. Forget that for now. Put her brutally murdered visage out of your mind. Genji spoke kindly to Kanon as he advanced a pawn. What? Genji spoke kindly to Kanon as he advanced a pawn. That doesn't make sense to me. I feel like I've missed something. Nanjo had escaped from the parlor once the mood had grown sour, and Genji had become his opponent in a game of chess upon Nanjo's request. Okay, now it makes sense. Man, these things are just ordered really weirdly sometimes. Yes, I will forget it for now. Indeed, that is probably for the best. Genji purposefully refrained from facing Kanon as he spoke. He did so because he understood that it might make things tougher on Kanon if he noticed that someone was looking at his eyes. Yeah, I know that feeling. Nanjo also understood that and held back any thoughtless words. I wonder where Kinzo-san has gone. Gallivanting around the forest. I hope that he is safe, but I do not know. However, I believe everything has proceeded as the master had hoped and arranged for. To distrust that would exceed my role as furniture in service to the master. Aren't you scared, Genji-san? I am frightened that something bad will occur again tonight. I have nothing to be afraid of. I serve the Ushiromiya family and that is all. Nanjo sighed through his nose and made a carefully considered move. Nanjo was very slightly dubious. How can you be very slightly dubious? Could Genji possibly be thinking that he'd be left out of this? He couldn't even imagine what was happening inside this mansion. But he definitely couldn't deny the possibility that Kinzo had devised something. If you liken this island to chess, Kinzo had opened the game and as a result 6 pieces had been defeated. Could it be that Genji was calm because he believed he alone was on the outside of the chessboard and therefore safe? Nanjo thought about it. Isn't everyone just a piece on this chessboard? Lined up equally without any exceptions? Well then wouldn't that be checkers? Wasn't even Genji, who had gained more of Kinzo's trust than anyone, no, who was confident of his position as Kinzo's only close friend, just another one of the pieces laid out on the chessboard. Genji-san, I am truly frightened about tonight. I hope with all my heart that we will still be safe when tomorrow morning comes. Good luck. The guest room Eva and Hideyoshi moved into had originally been built to house guests before the guest house construction. So, until a few years ago, they had stayed in these rooms every family conference and were very familiar with them. This room was just like a room at a hotel with a bedroom and a bathroom. So even though they were still shut in, it was far more comfortable than the parlor. Guess it's true you can relax more when you're alone with your family. Maybe it'd be better if everyone else also shut themselves in guest rooms and locked the doors. Natsuhi-ne-san said that no one could leave the parlor, throwing her weight around. I'm sure no one will be able to talk back. You can talk. She's always been treated so coldly, so now that Nisan's dead, she's getting excited about finally having so much power. So she's admitting to abusing this woman all these years. And now that she's finally stepping out from under the abuse, how dare she get so uppity and pretend that she's an actual human being? Jesus. Seriously, how shameless can she be? Thinking that she's a human with rights. Come now, don't say that. Natsuhi-san's doing pretty well. No need to jump on her like that. I mean, it's amazing she hasn't killed everybody herself already, to be honest. And about that receipt earlier, you went too far. Come on. If I hadn't said it there wouldn't be another good time to say it. Maybe you shouldn't have said it at all. Eva, sulking cutely, I doubt that, and looking at the television, sat alongside Hideyoshi, who was lying on the bed. Still, we haven't been alone like this for quite some time. Hoo. You're right, come to think of it, but you and I have gotten pretty old. Well then. Killed that before it started. Since George was born, everything's gone by in the blink of an eye. It really has. I wonder if we were too hasty in having a child. Eva's eyes looked like they were staring off into the distance. Yes, she had thought of it as a once-in-a-lifetime chance. Her older brother Kraus had been unable to father a child for quite some time. 6 years passed after his marriage to Natsuhi without any signs of pregnancy, which didn't please Kinzo at all. Eva herself had thought that, since her name would be moved outside the Ushinomiya register when she got married anyway, it didn't matter whether a successor to the headship was born or not. And then, one day, she had a heavenly revelation. Ta-da! Or maybe it was the whisperings of the devil that she had listened to in her greed. If she could give birth to a successor first, wouldn't she be able to remain in the Ushinomiya register? Ta-da! If things went well, might she have a chance to inherit the Ushinomiya family herself? Probably not. When she proposed this to Hideyoshi, he had approved of it instantly. This wasn't because Hideyoshi also had greedy thoughts. For Hideyoshi, who had no close relatives, it was a chance for him to feel once more the long-forgotten thing called family. Aww. So when they got married, he hadn't fussed over which last name they were to keep and had quickly agreed to have his name entered into the Ushinomiya family register. It hadn't been easy to persuade Kinzo, but as his daughter, Eva knew Kinzo's personality well. So, by choosing the time when Kinzo was most dissatisfied with Natsuhi, she was magnificently able to make him accept Hideyoshi as an adopted son-in-law. Looking at Hideyoshi, who had achieved success after starting from nothing, Kinzo might have seen a little bit of himself. He quickly grew to like Hideyoshi and approved his transfer into the Ushinomiya register. George would eventually become the successor to the Ushinomiya family. They had raised him strictly with that purpose in mind. He had been worth their while and had grown into a fabulous young man who wouldn't disappoint no matter where he went. That was why he had not been permitted to fall in love with a servant like Shannon. So, when she'd learned that Shannon was dead, and the engagement was now invalid, though part of her had still been shocked by the gruesome crime, part of her had also been relieved that her dear George wouldn't be stolen by some servant girl. Her douchebaggery knows no ends. My goodness. I have hated Kraus Nissan since long ago. What a surprise. He was so full of himself, always swaggering around. So proud that he would one day become the head. So I wanted to get back at him. Was that just a childish emotion? Yes. But in the end, that emotion guided my entire life. Well, that's your problem. If that had been all, then it would have been fine. But because of that emotion, I got you and George involved. I used you. What is that reflection on the floor? Eva, don't blame yourself for that. Hideyoshi got up and held Eva's shoulder. She could feel a warm understanding from him. Well, I reached the halfway point in my life long ago. But you know, I have absolutely no regrets about how I've lived my life. Not one. I think that since I've been with you, Eva, I've been able to relish an enjoyable life that other men never will. After I lost my relatives in the war, you reminded me what the warmth of family is. Wait, this takes place in the 80s. If we assume that Hideyoshi is like in his 40s-ish, he's probably like late 40s, which would make him born at like the end of the war. I don't understand how like he would understand losing his relatives in the war if he never knew them. Come on. So I'm grateful to the Ushinomiya family and think of it as my only one. In this life, I've led with you. Not a single thing's been wasted. It's really been a fun life up till today. Aww. Thank you, darling. Eva hung her head, burying her face in Hideyoshi's chest. Probably no one in the parlour could even imagine that this side of Eva existed. I'm the one who should be thanking you. Until today, there hasn't been a single day I've regretted being with you. Aww. Me too. I'm so glad to have you by my side. George is already a fine adult. Even if I don't look out for him, he's a man who could do his job well on his own. I wonder, around New Year's, do you want to go spend some time in the Maldives? Sure. Just us. No one else. No way. Aren't you always saying that you're so busy responding to New Year's cards that you don't even sleep? None of that this New Year's. I won't read New Year's cards. I'll just stay quiet and check to see if I've won the New Year's lottery, the most important point. It'd sure be nice if we won a colour TV this year. Yeah, colour TV. Woo! No way! I don't want to waste time checking the lottery while we're in the Maldives. Then none of that either. How does it sound? Just the two of us, taking it easy like when we were newlyweds, just before George was born. Yes, in that case fine. I hear the Maldives are wonderful. An island with nothing on it, surrounded by beautiful coral reefs and cottages lined up over the water. You're on an island right now. Like when we were newlyweds, you say. Starting when? As soon as I've finished up some business. I won't know till I ask the travel agency, but probably before New Year's Eve. No way. Right now. I want to go right now. And just like that, they faded away and appeared in the Maldives. Eva nagged at his lips in a peevish yet flirtatious manner. The only sounds that filled the room were the distant voice of the announcer on the news, which Hideyoshi had left on, and the obnoxious pounding of the rain against the window. Da-dun. There was a knock at the door, and Genji-san entered. Madam, dinner has been prepared. Will you eat in here again? Yes. Have it brought here. Is Dr. Nanjo still in the kitchen? Yes. He has said he wishes to carefully deliberate over his next move. Do not worry, he is with the other servants. Genji-san's good enough at chess to be grandfather's opponent. I hear he's even better than Dr. Nanjo, right? That's right. Long ago he played against me, but he must have let me win. Maria, sounds like it'll be time to eat soon. But look at you. You've been watching TV all day long, and you still haven't gotten bored. Ooh, I'm always watching TV, so I'm fine. My mother doesn't raise me. Ooh. Heh, Maria-chan sure is a TV kid. It's because her mother is also a douchebag. Food's coming, so we have to clean up the table. Earlier, we had torn several pages out of Maria's notebook, and there was now a mess where everyone had been drawing together. Jessica began cleaning that up quickly. Still, everyone here really can draw. I'd never guessed. Genji, ask Eva-san and Hideyoshi-san whether they'd at least like to have dinner with us. Although they will probably turn us down. Certainly. First father, and now Eva-san. It's quite hard to gather everyone to the Ushinomiya dinner table. Probably because your dinners are ragingly uncomfortable. Natsuhi felt her headache start throbbing again and lightly held her temples. The distance from the kitchen to the parlour wasn't that great, so Genji had gone and come back by himself, but the guest room was a little farther away. Natsuhi had warned him to avoid being alone whenever possible, and just now Nanjo had also admonished him, saying it would be better if he held a little more concern for his safety. Kanon accompanied Genji, and the two of them went to visit Eva and Hideyoshi in their guest room. Genji knocked on the door. Eva-sama, Hideyoshi-sama, dinner has been prepared. He waited a short while for them to come out, but there was no response. Could it be? Genji-sama, look at this. Kanon pointed under the door. Finally, something's happening. A Western envelope had been inserted under it. Normally, when something was inserted this way, it'd be interpreted as a message from someone outside to someone in the room. So, since this might be a private note meant for Eva and Hideyoshi, it was not something that Kanon and Genji were supposed to take interest in. But this Western envelope was one of Kinzo's, the same kind as the one Maria had taken out last night and surprised everyone with. Ta-da! There can be no mistake. It is one of the master's envelopes. Or could it be? Even though this was one of Kinzo's envelopes, the letter Maria read aloud the previous night hadn't come from Kinzo. Genji continued knocking a little harder and called out in a loud voice. Oh, excitement. Eva-sama? Eva-sama? It is Genji. Are you there? Please answer, Eva-sama. But there was no response from inside. Sometimes, when the servants went to call some guests for a meal, the guests would be sleeping so deeply that they wouldn't wake up. In times like that, the servants would stick a letter in the door to show that it was time to come out and leave the guest be. But despite that, Genji beat even harder on the door and called out Eva's name. However, there was no answer. Kanon stuck his ear to the door, held his breath, and listened for any sounds coming from inside. I hear something that sounds like the television, but I don't sense anyone. The room might be empty. Genji took out a handkerchief and, careful not to touch it with his bare hands, gently pulled out the envelope that had been stuck under the door. It was sealed with deep red sealing wax. Without a doubt, the mark on that sealing wax had come from the Ushiromiya family's head ring. Eva-sama! Eva-sama! Please answer! Are you still in your room? But there was still no answer. There was a chance that those two were aimlessly walking around the mansion. This was the home Eva had grown up in. There was plenty of reason to think that she had gone out on a casual stroll. Genji groped around in his pocket and pulled out the bundle of keys, which contained the key that would open the guest room. Genji-sama. Kanon also understood what this meant. They would sometimes unlock the door so they could go in and do things like make the beds, but only after they made sure the guests were out. To unlock the door for any other reason, and especially to do so when there was a chance that the guests hadn't given permission and might still be in there, was an action unbecoming of a servant. But Genji had decided. If the only problem had been that his knock hadn't received a reply, he wouldn't have gone this far. But the envelope under the door was doubtlessly one of Kinzo's. Or rather, one of the Western envelopes of the Ushiromiya family head. After last night, the sender of this envelope could be someone other than Kinzo. If this letter had been sent by someone else... Eva-sama! My apologies. Allow me to enter your room. After giving that final notice, Genji stuck one of the keys from the bundle into the keyhole. There was the sound of the door unlocking, and after slowly turning the knob, he slowly started opening the door. Light seeped through the crack of the door. Were they in the room? Or had they forgotten to turn out the lights? Clank. It was the sound of the door chain being pulled tight. The chain had been secured. The chain couldn't be secured from the outside, so it also proved that they were in the room. The sound of voices on the TV seeped out of the room. The lights, the chain, and the TV, all of these things made it clear they were in the room. But there was no sign of them. Genji called to Eva once again through the crack of the door, but there was no answer. Genji-sama, what should we do? As part of their job, the servants were able to unlock almost any lock in the mansion, but they had no way to open a door with a chain, boot it open. The only way to get by the chain was to cut it. That was certainly not permitted as part of a servant's usual work. A creepy chill had already rushed up their backs. Kanon held his breath again and tried to sense someone through the door, but even so, he was not able to sense anyone. Don't think that's how that works. I will call Madam and return. Kanon, cut the chain. Yes. Vroom. As Kanon hurried away to get a cutting tool, Genji called him to stop. Wait, Kanon. Return to the kitchen and take Kumasawa with you. You must not act alone. Yes, certainly. It looked like Kanon was wondering why he had to do something so troublesome in the middle of this urgent situation. But Genji had said it out of wariness. He didn't care what happened to himself, but in the worst case scenario, he didn't want anything to happen to Kanon. In the kitchen, Kumasawa was piling food on the serving cart, and Nanjo was waiting for Genji, apparently wanting to show him a move he'd finally thought up that might turn the tables on him. But Genji's appearance immediately told him that something was wrong. "Oh, what has happened, Genji-san?" "Dr. Nanjo, my apologies, but please allow this match to be suspended for the time being. Kanon, take care of the chain. Kumasawa, stop setting up dinner for now and accompany Kanon. I will go over to Madam. If you would come with me, Dr. Nanjo." Has something happened?" Genji took Nanjo, who still didn't know what was going on, and quickly left the kitchen. "Kumasawa-san, my apologies, but please come with me." "What has happened, Kanon-san?" Kumasawa said almost exactly the same thing as Nanjo, unable to take in the situation, and chased after Kanon, who had flown out into the hallway. Taking Kumasawa with him, Kanon went to a storage room and looked through the tools packed in the toolboxes and hanging all over the walls, trying to find something that could be used to cut the chain. "What are you looking for? Let me help too." "We're cutting a door chain." "Where was that large wire cutter?" "A door chain? Why would you do something like that?" "The chain to Eva-sama in Hideyoshi-sama's room. Even though they should be inside, they didn't answer when we called them." It took Kumasawa some time to figure out how cutting the chain and Eva and Hideyoshi not answering were connected, but she did realize that this was an urgent situation. "That one will probably do the trick." Kanon took down a very large wire cutter that had been hanging on the wall. It was called a cutter, but maybe it'd be easier to understand if we said it was shaped like a large pair of pliers. Nobody cares, come on. Kanon remembered once being warned that this dangerous tool could easily cut through one of your fingers. Hopefully that's foreshadowing. Kanon took that and rushed up the stairs. He already knew instinctively. He should fight for every minute, every second to open it quickly. Or perhaps it was already... "Please wait, Kanon-san." "Hurry. Keep up, old woman." Kumasawa eventually caught up with him, gaping, gasping for breath with both hands on her knees. When Kanon changed his grip on the wire cutters and looked up at the door, he let out an "ah!" Struck speechless. "Oh, okay. Cool. What is this?" "Eep!" Kumasawa screamed weakly, her face pallid. That was no surprise, because right there on the door, just like the magic circle that had been drawn on the shutter of the Rose Garden storehouse, there was another eerie shape drawn with a blood-like paint. However, it would be odd to call this one a magic circle. It's like a door. Because unlike what most people would expect, it wasn't a circle with shapes drawn inside it, but a slightly more complicated geometrical shape. However, those strange characters filling in the gaps, which weren't from the alphabet, were the same kind as the ones on that magic circle on the shutter. But the thing that had Kanon struck speechless wasn't how eerie the magic circle was. It's not a circle. It was that something like this hadn't been here a short while ago. Ta-da! First, he had taken a trip back to the kitchen. "Oh, you know this, we just did it." After that, he'd gone to the storage room to grab a tool and headed right back, put those together, and it couldn't have been more than 5 minutes. How could someone add something this creepy during that period of time? And as though it had just been drawn, almost like the door itself was bleeding, several unsettling vertical red lines slowly dripped down, getting longer and longer. "Eep! Eek!" Kumasawa-san's knees gave way and she sank down on the spot. If Kumasawa hadn't done this first, then Kanon surely would have wanted to. "Beatrice-sama." "Eek! It's the work of Beatrice-sama. How horrid! How horrid!" Kanon gulped, then readied the wire cutter and approached the door. He didn't want to get close to this disturbing magic circle. It's not a circle. and he really didn't want to touch the steadily dripping substance that looked like blood. But if he didn't get close, he wouldn't be able to cut the chain. Fighting this cold feeling, he gulped again, and after gathering his courage, he went even closer, putting the wire cutter up against the chain. He then pressed with all his strength, managing to cut through the chain far more easily than he'd anticipated. The cut chain fell into two separate parts, which continued to clang as they swayed back and forth. "Kanon-san, there's an envelope by your feet. And isn't that the master's?" It looked like Kumasawa had also noticed the western envelope at the bottom of the door, and that the sealing wax had been sealed with the head's ring. Kanon hesitated for just a second over whether he should open the letter first or check inside the room, but he eventually decided on fulfilling his original purpose. Kanon pulled a handkerchief out of his pocket. This was so he wouldn't leave fingerprints on the door. If his worst fears were realized, the police would want to investigate this room too. Nadan! He slowly pushed the door open. He was able to more clearly hear the sound of the television, which had been seeping out faintly this whole time. Eva-sama? Eva was lying face up on the bed. Funny, it looks empty. On the bed, with her shoes still on. Kumasawa, who had fearfully entered after Kanon and who was hiding behind his back, screamed a short "Eek!" again when she saw Eva like that. Eva's shoes had been the first part of her that Kanon had seen, so the oddness of wearing shoes in bed was the first thing to strike him. But when Eva's head shifted into his line of sight, Kanon couldn't help but let out a short scream like Kumasawa. I'm just seeing Kanon going "Eep!" right in the middle of Eva's forehead. Something had been placed. Something. No. Something. No, thank you. Right in the center of her forehead. Was it an old-fashioned knife? That or some weapon like it was sticking out. That's a horrible way to go. At the base of where it was stuck in, blood dripped down, staining the sheets on the other side bright red. Kumasawa's knees gave way once more and she sank down on the floor. Her mouth kept flapping open and closed, but she couldn't even scream. Eva was dead, with some kind of weapon sticking out of her forehead. I want to say that I feel bad, but I don't even want to say that I feel bad. Eva's a raging douchebag. Both eyes were open wide, and the image of the person who killed her must have been burned into them. But the only mouth capable of naming that person had been shut for all eternity. Even though her forehead was the last place they wanted to look, they couldn't tear their eyes from it. Right there, the weapon was stuck into Eva's forehead, standing almost perfectly upright. And on the handle was a complicated design that you wouldn't expect to see on an ordinary weapon. That thing could be summed up with the word occult. It was a vulgar object with a design that might have been of some demon. What about Hideyoshi-sama? Hideyoshi-sama! Eva was on top of her bed, but the other bed was empty. Where was Hideyoshi? After taking a backwards glance at Kumasawa, still on her knees and stupefied, he checked the bathroom just in case. I like that word. Stupefied. At that moment he opened the door, he was greeted by steam and the sound of a shower. Oh, that's a horrible way to go. The bathroom was of the same familiar style as most hotel bathrooms. When taking a shower, a waterproof curtain was used to keep water from flying out. That waterproof curtain was half open, and lying tumbled down in the bathtub was Hideyoshi, completely naked with both eyes open. That's a bad way to go. And pointing right at Kanon. Yeah, that's not scary. Just like Eva, a weapon with a demon-like design was stuck into his forehead. Since his head had been under the shower's hot water this whole time, his face wasn't half covered and filthy with blood like Eva's had been. But the sight of him dead while taking a shower was tragic enough. Yeah, I don't think Kanon was, counting on seeing a man's private parts today. Just then, they heard Natsuhi's voice coming from the hall. She was probably coming with Genji. Oh, cover Hideyoshi, please. Her poor eyes. Again with this graffiti. What about this letter? What does it say inside? I don't know, I haven't read it yet. We shouldn't touch it carelessly. The culprit's fingerprints might be left on it. We should hand it over to the police. Read it first. They went out of their way to leave it here. I'm sure they wouldn't have left fingerprints. As Natsuhi said that, she picked up the envelope. And before checking its contents, she entered the room herself, where she found Eva, dead. This music is cool. Eva-san! Madam, Hideyoshi-sama is here too. Naked as the day he was born. This is truly atrocious. Canon, turn off the shower. Don't let this be any more pitiful than it needs to be. Yes, ma'am. Canon gripped his handkerchief and twisted the valve, turning off the shower. In the bathtub, a small jar of body soap had fallen with its cap off. It really looked like he'd been attacked while taking a shower. Obviously. There was still a small splash of blood clinging to the white bathtub, and the combination of red and white made a horrible contrast. Dr. Nanjo, I understand. No signs of post-mortem lividity. What? Rigor mortis hasn't begun either. It would seem that an hour or so has passed since they were killed. Oh, he's been sitting under the water for an hour? But even so, how a weapon with such a short handle could do that to the skull, I cannot imagine. Nanjo checked their pulse and their pupils, making certain of their deaths once more. Just a thought. A knife stuck in the head, probably dead. As Canon watched this business-like treatment, he thought, couldn't you tell at a glance that they're dead without doing all that? See, Canon knows the score. He knows what's going on. Nanjo thought about removing the weapon. No, don't touch it. But then decided it'd be better to preserve the scene and hand it over to the police, so he left it alone. Good job. But a close inspection of the base showed that it didn't have a blade. What? In fact, it was more conical than blade-shaped. Ugh. He noticed that, rather than a knife, it was more like a short-handled spear. Something with a shape better suited for thrusting than slicing. Ugh. Some people might have likened it to a thick ice pick, rather than a short spear. At any rate, after looking at this scene, no further words were needed to describe what sort of terrible purpose such eerily designed weapons were originally made for. Why is the sentence so long? Nor was it necessary to explain how they carried out their function. Natsuhi, hoping to escape the repulsive steam filling the bathroom as soon as she could, covered her mouth with a handkerchief and dashed from the room. Just viewing their gruesome bodies for an instant had been enough to burn the image into her eyes. If she looked any longer, that image would surely remain in her vision for all eternity. Probably, not gonna forget that anytime soon. The rising urge to vomit was exactly the same feeling she had that morning at the gardening storehouse. For a while, Natsuhi couldn't help but stand with her back facing the guest room, fighting that sickness in her stomach. At any rate, we can't let George-kun see this room. Seal this room with all haste. Yes, we mustn't let them see. If George-san saw his parents in this brutal state. But they could tell that those fiercely racing footsteps in the hallway belonged to George. Uh-oh, even before he came dashing into the room. George and the other children had been waiting in the parlor. However, when they saw Genji speak to Natsuhi, when they saw her turn pale and fly out of the parlor, they felt a sense of foreboding. And when they saw a large group of people gathered around the guest room, they were sure of it. Father! Alright. This one finally got exciting at the end, so it went a bit longer than I planned. But we're going to find out what is going on in the next one. See ya!